Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 9, Episode 57. That's Dave Bryan. I am Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Dave, happy Wednesday to you. We have a great interview going on later in this podcast. Michael Gelkin from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. We'll be here to talk about the Raiders and their obviously difficult season. But sticking with Vegas, Dave, I think you have some very happy Pittsburgh fans considering what Ryan Reeves did to Tom Wilson last night. That hit. I'm not saying I loved it, but I'm just saying karma works, doesn't it?
Yeah, karma is alive and well. What do they like to call him? The Grim Reaver.
Oh, is that what they say? I love that.
Yeah, the Grim Reaver out here. I kind of look at it as Ryan Reeves is doing the Lord's work, if you will. Look, I don't like to see players injured. Sure. I don't root for players to get injured, against the Steelers or anything like that, because I want to see how the team is able to function against, star players and all like that. And obviously don't wish ill will on any person such as that, a serious injury. But let me tell you, to see Tom Wilson go sprawling on the ice like he did, I didn't wince or anything. I'll just put it to you that way. So now it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Ryan Reeves, I guess. And look, I don't pay attention to hockey near as close as I do, obviously, the NFL. But you can bet I'll be having my eye on that.
Yeah, and so will the rest of the hockey world. So, Dave, let's jump into the Steelers here because we have a ton to talk about. And it started with, as we kind of expected, a bunch of transactions yesterday. Do you want to recap what all they did yesterday morning?
Yeah. We knew that there was probably going to be some moves that were going to get made. We just didn't know how many and to what degree. But boy, they sure did make quite a few of them. And it started off with, I guess you could say it started off with Justin Hunter going to IR. With that shoulder injury that he suffered in the second quarter of the game against the Chargers on Sunday night, diving for a wide open pass from Ben Roethlisberger that really he shouldn't have ever had to dive for. Roethlisberger, of course, was on his radio show Tuesday. Apologized for it. Just thought when it left his hand it was a good pass, and most of his time he did a fantastic job of twisting that other safety around. With his eyes, and I think I have a great gif of that up on the Twitter machine, as well too. But he put that thing a little bit long, and now Justin Hunter's season's over with. I know that's not going to infuriate a lot of people. It's not, in my opinion, a huge loss. But what it does do now is it does open the door back open for James Washington to start dressing again and seeing if he can maybe turn what has been, no two ways around it, kind of a disastrous rookie season around with about four weeks to go here. So that was a transaction there. They also promoted second year, I guess you'd call him, running back Trey Edmonds to the 53-man roster from the practice squad. Trey Edmonds is, of course, the older brother of Terrell Edmonds, the Steelers safety. Trey has been on the practice squad since the start of the regular season. He spent his rookie season on the 53-man roster of the New Orleans Saints, mostly used as a special teams player. And Mike Tomlin was quick to point out that that's his skill set, and that we're probably going to see him dress because of that against Raiders. Man, I got a frog in my throat again this morning here. But those were the primary ones. They also signed Matthew Thomas to the practice squad after he cleared waivers, and they released Farrington Huguenin. And then later in the day, I'm trying to find the name of the damn running back here.
Ralph Webb.
Ralph Webb was the running back they also signed to the practice squad to essentially fill the spot that Trey Edmonds had. So, that's where we sit now, and I think the big question people will have is what's going to happen to Eli Rogers at this point. And we'll get into, I guess it's a good time to kind of segue into the injury report. With Ryan Switzer's, probably going to come out of protocol as early as today. With Hunter now on IR, and with James Washington probably set to see the field again, and with James Conner dealing with an ankle injury that Mike Tomlin said they thought that was a contusion at first, and that is an ankle injury. Conner's not going to play Sunday against the Raiders. I personally, Alex, I don't see a way how or the need to get Eli Rogers to the 53 from PUP right now on Saturday. Maybe you see it differently, but I still don't see the need nor the space to be able to do that with Conner down and Edmonds up on the 53 right now.
Yeah, I generally agree. Unless Switzer misses, I don't see how Rogers gets the call up. Is this the cutoff week for them to make a decision on Rogers, or do they have one more week, Dave?
No, you have the 21 days, and he started practicing, it was wasn't it last week?
Was it last week?
Yeah, wasn't it last Wednesday that he started practicing?
Okay. Maybe I'm getting my days mixed up.
So they still have plenty of time, with him. So to me, there's no reason to do that. I mean, you generally have or usually have at least one wide receiver inactive anyway, right? And you could argue that James Conner becomes that guy, being as how they're now that there's now another running back on the roster. I just if you activate him, who are you cutting first and foremost?
Yeah, no, I don't see it unless, like I said, unless Switzer misses. Because what is Rogers going to do if he's up? Switzer's your slot guy, he's your return guy. Juju can also play in the slot. DHB can play in the slot in a pinch. So there's not a lot of value there.
No, there's not. And let's see, the Steelers did work out two other free agent running backs to maybe keep an eye on, Joel Buganon and Kenneth Farrow. Now, Buganon is a guy that they had worked out previously, I think, back in January or so, and didn't sign him either. But they brought him, those two running backs, in with Ralph Webb, and obviously decided on Ralph Webb. Now, as far as the injury report goes, I tell you, sometimes this media, they ought to write down their questions ahead of time, because they definitely forget to ask about a few people here, and I don't remember them asking about Morgan Burnett, but Morgan Burnett, a guy that was inactive on Sunday night against the Chargers with the back injury. I didn't hear it. Did you hear him update the status of Morgan Burnett?
I did not.
All right, so we don't know we'll have to wait until later on today to find out what's going to happen with Morgan Burnett. As previously mentioned, James Conner was ruled out by Mike Tomlin on Tuesday with an ankle injury. Mike Tomlin would not say whether or not it's a high ankle injury, but the fact that James Conner is being ruled out for a game on Tuesday, that's not a good sign. And Mike Tomlin did not put any kind of timetable on James Conner either. So I'm guessing this is going to be a week-to-week thing. But I'm also guessing they're probably not going to rush him back either. So in the meantime, we'd probably expect a committee of sort with Stephon Ridley and Jalen Samuels, and then of course we mentioned Edmonds getting called up to the 53. I wouldn't expect Edmonds to get any touching of the football unless something goes terribly wrong during the game against the Raiders there. Closing out the rest of the injury report, after talking about Justin Hunter going on IR, Tomlin then addressed the health of the other players who suffered ailments during that contest. Long snapper Cameron Canaday with a sprained knee, Ryan Switzer, fullback Roosevelt Nix, and Anthony Chicklow. He said that Canaday went down in the game with a knee, was able to return. It's probably going to slow his preparation here in the early stages of the week, but we're hopeful that he'll be a participant on Sunday. The Steelers obviously haven't signed a long snapper yet, so that's good news as far as his possible availability for Sunday against the Raiders go. Chicklow sustained an ankle in the game. It may limit him in preparation during the course of the week, and we'll see where that leads us. Have you found out where he got hurt again?
Chicklow?
Yeah.
It was on a punt block team, or I can't remember. That was punt coverage team. He's gotten killed on those punt teams the last 3 weeks twice. He's rolled ankles on them.
Was it second half?
I believe it was first half. I'd have to go back and check.
Okay. Let's see. The other guys, Roosevelt Nix had a shoulder. Makes you kind of wonder if that happened on that early touchdown.
Right.
Because he got one into who was the linebacker? Was it It was Ingram, okay, on that one. Perfect time for him to.
I feel like Rosie's the dude that just throws his shoulder into a wall after a loss, though. He just gets angry, so I don't know when it happened.
Right, probably resets it that way. But
Right.
Ryan Switzer's in the protocol. Part of getting out of protocol is physical labor, so he'll be given an opportunity to do some things. Optimistic about his inclusion. As we mentioned, Mike Tomlin did not mention Morgan Burnett, but he did talk a little bit about Marcus Gilbert. He says Marcus Gilbert is still working his way back from injury. Hadn't checked on his status. I think he's downstairs right now working. We'll see where his participation is and where that participation might lead us. He's got to be getting closer. You think? after missing the last 6 weeks in a row, I'd hope he's getting some sort of closer. But once again, today is Wednesday. If he doesn't practice, if he doesn't go full later this afternoon, that's not going to be a good sign, with him. If he does go full, then keep your fingers crossed that maybe he's back. But we'll see, and that's a recap of the injury report.
Yeah, unfortunately a long one. And I expect, obviously Connor's out this week, and I expect him to likely miss the Patriots game. And like you said, if you're getting ruled out on a Tuesday, and Tomlin, who loves keeping the light on for all these guys, usually that means you're going to miss more than one game. I expect Canada to play, otherwise they would have brought in a long snapper by now. It's not a decision you wait till later in the week to do. So I think most of those guys will play, but we'll see what happens, and certainly the depth's going to be tested. So quickly, Dave, what are your thoughts on the running back situation? How much confidence? Tomlin said he was confident. Of course he is. But how much confidence do you have in the committee of Stephen Ridley and Jalen Samuels?
Well, obviously you'd much rather want James Conner in there, and I saw Ed Bouchette write a kind of a blistering piece, I think, saying, well, now look where they're at. They didn't do a good job of preparing themselves in case Le'Veon Bell didn't show up, or in case James Conner went down. Look, what do you want them to do? They drafted a running back, and if you think back to the draft, how many people do you really think thought they were going to draft a running back this year? I was a bit surprised that they did.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Look, I never thought Le'Veon Bell would be out, sit out the rest of the season, and
Right.
James Conner was coming off of the injury. You can't be three solid deep at every position.
Mm-hmm.
But they did address the position with Jalen Samuels, albeit a guy that was more, I don't know, I still can't believe he's listed as a tight end in Yahoo fantasy football. He's everything but a tight end. But he is what he is, and they went that route with him. He did carry the football at North Carolina State, obviously. Ridley is a guy, and look, we haven't even talked about Ridley. Ridley is a guy that has experience. Now, Ridley hasn't played in the last 3 games, and he played 10 snaps, I think, in total against the Panthers in that game. He's a capable guy. Is he a guy I want out there for 60 snaps a game? No. I don't want Samuels out there 60 snaps a game either, so I think you can, do some sort of committee here. And let's face it, what has James Conner done in the last 3 games?
Yeah, I think you can manage it. It won't be pretty, and obviously it's not a great situation. But I disagreed with the Bouchette article, the angle. Depth can only be so good. No one expected Bell to skip the entire season. I'm not really sure what he wanted at that point. If you say, well, you should have taken a running back higher, well, then let's say you're not taking a tackle higher, and you ended up being on your third string, right tackle with a core for this year. So, I didn't really get the angle from Bouchette. But I think generally you go into this game.
It really seemed like old man shakes fist at cloud.
Yeah. A little bit of that for sure. But I think you go into this game with Ridley as an early down back, Samuels as a passing down, third down guy. And Samuels will mix and match for sure. Samuels might get to start in this thing, but I think that's kind of the general division of labor, because obviously not one guy is going to be able to shoulder this load. So I think Ridley's a better runner. Samuels is maybe the better blocker even at this point, but definitely the better receiver. So I think that's kind of the way you work it against the Raiders.
And this is a team right now that's not running a lot anyway. So
yeah, do a lot less of that. Yeah.
Against the Raiders, I'm not overly worried. No.
Right.
That, to me, that's not going to win or lose the game there. Now, I would obviously like to see, the successful run rate early in the game, as that's something I keep harping on. You want to see a good 50% successful run rate, at least early if you can. I mean, I can understand for the game if you dip down into that 42% range or along those lines, but I don't think you abandon the run completely just because not having James Conner in there. So is it a big deal? Yes, because I mean, this a kid, James Conner, that's done a lot for you this season, albeit not a lot in the last 3 weeks. Now he did have a couple of big calls, or especially the one against the Chargers the other night. For how far did that one go? 18, 22, something like that.
22. Yeah.
For on the Ramon Foster hold. By the way, what do you think going back and looking at that? Is it more? Was it the optics of that left hand on Foster on that reach?
Yeah, I thought it was a bad call, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, what are you gonna do? But anyway, that's the next man up, right?
Well, that's a good segue into something I'm a little mad about. I don't know if you want me to get on my soapbox right away, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, let's do it because I want to play. I think I want to play a little good Tomlin, bad Tomlin, good cop, bad cop here. Where I think you're going to do everything in the power here to say that we should fire Keith Butler and Mike Tomlin. And I'm going to try to prevent you from doing that.
Okay, you're gonna get the hate mail sent my way. I don't. Well, Butler, I don't know. Okay, maybe.
No, I think most people are gonna side with you on this one. I'm gonna try to make my feeble attempt at this, but go ahead.
Well, obviously, I'm not in the fire Tomlin camp. I know you're being jokey with that, but just for anyone who thinks that's serious, that's not the case. Butler could be a different story. But yeah, Tomlin had his press conference yesterday, and I don't know what stuck out in particular for you, but for me, Dave, it was his answer about, why did linebackers get matched up so often on Keenan Allen. I know I've written about it a million times already this week, but it's such a frustrating topic, and I think it's really just kind of, in a nutshell, the struggles of this defense too often throughout this year. And Tomlin basically said, several times that it was because of a lack of, Cam Sutton and Morgan Burnett. He says, quote, "It was no secret we were without Morgan Burnett and Cam Sutton, two of our core interior sub-package defenders." Another time he said, quote, "Playing without Morgan Burnett and Cam Sutton really kind of limited us in some of those things. And I think as the game went on, Rivers pushed Keenan Allen inside and took advantage of some of those opportunities. Such is life." And I got to say, Dave, for a guy that preaches standard is the standard, next man up, injuries won't be an excuse. He said that a million times before, and I believe he truly believes it. That is totally running counter to that philosophy. And in reality, 13 of Allen's 15 receptions Sunday night came in Steelers' base and nickel defense. So even if you had Burnett and Sutton healthy and available, they weren't going to be in those situations. And it's not like Marcus Allen played 3 snaps as a rookie playing in his first game. He played 17 snaps. There were times where they got him matched up on Antonio Gates and they put Joe Hayden on Keenan Allen. It happened like twice. So why couldn't there have been more of that? So to me, it was just, one, shocking to hear him use the injury as an excuse because he never does that. That's not what he talks about. And 2, it just isn't accurate because even if you had those guys, you're still in the same situation when you got, Bud Dupree, LJ Ford in your base defense, John Bostic in your base defense, lined up on Keenan Allen. So really disappointing answer. Honestly, Dave, I don't mean to be too prisoner of the moment. One of the worst answers I've ever heard Tomlin give.
All right, now look, obviously, and we went through the numbers that the nearest, and these were on his targets only. The nearest defender on Keenan Allen Sunday night, linebacker 9 times. There were 7 catches there. A cornerback 8 times, 6 receptions there, and he has a safety twice with 1 reception. I'm still trying to find out which one he's deeming a safety being in coverage on with the catch. I think they might have that wrong because I went through all these. In fact, man, for all that I like that Pro Football Focus does, they need to double check their work, man, because they have Edmonds. I mean, I sent that to you via DM, right? I mean, that's clearly Fort's man, right?
Yeah, I think they just have a typo. They got it correct.
Right, and that was the quick slant for 18 yards, the second catch that Allen had. All right, as much as we, you and a lot of people are writing and talking about the Steelers having a linebacker on Keenan Allen, that didn't happen the whole game, right?
No, but it happened almost every time Allen got pushed inside like that.
Okay, but when you look at, all right, when you look at what he at the balls that he caught, okay, obviously, and here's my argument here, I guess. The first three, the one with Dupree to open a game, all right, get me once, scheme me once, shame on me, all right. That one went for 14 yards, and then you had the quick slant to Fort. That was out of empty, was it not?
I believe I'd have to check though.
Okay, and then that was a big one. That was his second catch on the opening drive as well too. The first catch was the first play of the game. The one to Fort went to 18 yards on a quick slant. The next one was also Fort in coverage as well too. Now keep in mind these are all three on the first drive of the game. Yes, those three catches netted 28 and 14 is what, 42 yards on that. Did they score on that first possession? I know that's not.
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
Okay, but they didn't score. Okay, you did get the stop there. They
only got the stop because Allen slipped on third down. He had Fort beat. He just slipped and he had to dive for the catch and he fell a yard short of the sticks.
Okay, all right.
I don't know what's the overall point you're trying to make here.
The overall point I'm trying to make is not all of it was him beating linebackers for catches.
But he did it way too much, and they didn't.
I think the most egregious of them all still is that final one on that 3rd and 4 with Bostic out there. I think that is because look, even one of them, and I know it's you. I don't think you can be kind of results biased on this because it was a touchdown. But look, they had an opportunity to intercept one of those in the end zone, and they didn't do it.
Sure. But yeah, but again, Keenan Allen being on John Bostic has nothing to do with Morgan Burnett and Cam Sutton. That's what Tomlin's saying here. We didn't have Burnett. We didn't have Sutton. You're in your base defense there for some ungodly reason. You don't even have Mike Hilton out there. So forget about Burnett and Sutton. You don't even have your nickel corner out there.
All right. Would you agree that the most egregious one of the night was that 3rd and 4?
Sure, because it was most impactful, but it was a problem throughout the entire game. I didn't like any of it. I mean, it might happen once or twice. The first play with Dupree, it's a twin set. I get it because the way the Steelers play it, fine. I can live with that. But the repeatedness of it and the fact that you had Marcus Allen and you were using him in those situations and, you're playing in base when you probably don't need to be. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into this. And so it was just the combination of everything that was super frustrating.
And you're not going to, well, look, I mean, people say, well, just let Joe Hayden travel with him all day. We know that's not going to happen.
Well, you've been traveling Hayden a lot. I mean, they've been traveling Hayden for the last month, for a large majority of the time.
If you man up, then you run the risk of a ton of man beaters against you.
But hey, if you're going to lose, that's how you want to lose, not with a linebacker on them. If you're going to go down swinging with your best guys. That's kind of my approach.
All right. Well, on several of these catches, look, I mean, and Williams on the one on 1st and 10 with Vince Williams covering. I think Keenan Allen was on the left side he's on the right side of formation on that one. That was just a give me on a 1st and 10. Poor Mike Hilton got spun around, coming out of a kind of a stack release there with Allen on the left side. I mean, that was a great rub. I mean, sometimes you're the hammer and sometimes you're the nail in these situations. And like I said, they blew a golden opportunity to intercept one of those. Look, I there's no way I can properly defend this thing, and you know it. But I'm just trying to give kind of a devil's advocate here that it wasn't all linebackers on Keenan Allen all night.
No, I understand, and you're right. It wasn't, but it was more than enough, more than needed, more than it should have been. And I think just if you're Tomlin, just own it. Say we didn't adjust well. You don't put the injury blame because that's not what Tomlin does. He never blames injuries. He always says we're not gonna use that as the crutch and the excuse. And I felt like he did, and that was a weird answer from him.
So you thought they should have been in what personnel more?
Well, I mean, that's a whole long answer.
Because look, I mean, they're still going to try to scheme you. I mean,
Sure.
a linebacker has to cover somebody, right?
Sure. I mean, it was just, when they were an empty and you got corners. Every time they were an empty, you had a corner on a running back. Why not put a linebacker on a running back so you get more DBs on, wide receivers? That was one big issue. I think Rivers was like 5 of 7, 5 of 6 out of empty set with, throwing for 70 yards. So that was a huge problem. So put linebackers on running backs. Be in nickel against 11 personnel. So people are trying to go base too much. Just start simplifying things. Match, your personnel with their personnel. Kind of get back to what this team's usually done in the past. Again, there's a whole long answer, and you can go into specific plays of what personnel should they have been on this play. I don't have one specific personnel they needed to be in, but less base defense and just they could have created better matchups. There's no debate about that in my mind.
All right. Well, I mean, obviously, Philip Rivers said it, and Mike Tomlin, and really everybody has said it. They really didn't. They didn't change what they did from the first half to the second half, and that's when it really, more than anything, seemingly caught up with him. Because, like I said, the first 3 catches that Keenan Allen had, yeah, they were catches. Yeah, they go into the books, but they didn't result in a score. In fact, his next 2, did they score on their third possession?
I don't remember the drive, each drive.
Let me try to find out here if they scored on their.
It was the end of the first quarter when they got the Benjamin touchdown on the false start.
Right, and Keenan Allen did had a couple catches on that drive before that touchdown happened. So that was that. All right, what other direction do you want to go in with what Tomlin had to say and Ben had to say? And he's looking forward to James Washington, the boomerang coming back to James Washington. Hopefully James Washington doesn't dive unnecessarily to catch that boomerang. But I'm excited about James Washington getting yet another chance here. What else did Tomlin have to say that caught your eye?
Well, that was the biggest thing. I didn't, that was the thing that really stuck with me. I don't think it was anything else super important that Tomlin had said. Not talking about the officiating. Obviously that's something he's trying to deflect. He doesn't want to get fined again or anything like that. Anything stick out for you? I mean, the Shazier stuff. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of him being paralyzed and being carted off against Cincinnati. So it's just remarkable to see Shazier, his comeback and his return. And I think the report was last week he was jogging again for the first time since that injury. So just a remarkable story. Couldn't be happier for Shazier. And it puts, a game like the Steelers loss in perspective, that stuff doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And the inspiration that Shazier continues to be, which is what Tomlin said, to this team and to this city, really, it cannot be, overstated. And I love hearing about it.
I like that he was asked again about the turnovers and this team. Yeah. It's frustrating, and it's not like it's just. I mean, it wasn't as bad last year, but I mean, here they are minus 8 right now. Yeah. In turnover, it wouldn't be so bad as long as you're not giving the football away on the other end. But he says, how much can generating turnovers actively be worked towards, and how much is just sort of patience and preparedness? We're in the process of working on it. Yeah, Mike, we know you've been working on it with that ball awareness for quite a while now. It's done in a lot of ways. A lot of it's done in creating environments, putting the quarterback under duress, and so forth, which they've done, right?
Yeah, that's why Tomlin said it's even more frustrating, because they've gotten pressure, and usually, we hear the old saying, rush and cover go together. You get pressure, you get turnovers. Nope, not the case this year for Pittsburgh for some weird reason.
Let's see, putting the quarterback under duress and so forth. That's one of the reasons I've been disappointed in the lack of turnovers, because the quarterback largely has been under duress in the games we play. We've gotten after the quarterback. Our sack total is kind of a reflection of that. We've got to be more optimistic. We've got to preach it. We've got to work it. The guys have to deliver. We're definitely not going to sit on our hands and wait patiently for it to occur. We're going to actively seek it, which is what we're doing. And then he was asked about ball hawks and what's the characteristics they share. Well, they're ball hawks, and the Steelers don't have one of those. Joe Hayden's probably the closest thing that you have right now, but you don't have any ball hawks back there. You don't have any signature Troy Polamalu guys back there.
Yeah, you just don't have the dudes, and that's not going to change the rest of this year. You can only hope that you get a couple bounces to go your way. the defensive line is batting more passes at the line of scrimmage. I'd like to see that. I think they have 5 deflections the last 3 weeks, so maybe you can get a turnover off of that, but I think it's going to be tough the rest of the way, Dave, and I think it's going to be one of the big reasons why this team is held back, and if they don't win a Super Bowl, then you're going to point to this as one large reason why.
Well, we're going to point. I think we're going to point to the defense regardless.
Sure, but specifically the lack of splash, because this defense isn't top tier, so you're going to give up yards, you're going to give up some points. That's going to happen in this day and age. But can you create the turnovers? That's what good defenses do in 2018, and this defense clearly is lacking severely in that area.
Good teams, when they get in the playoffs, get good offensive play, maybe except for one game. And I keep saying, then you need your defense to probably win you a game. But on the flip side, as part of that, you would expect to get a turnover or two in during a playoff game as well too from your defense, and that's just something you just go into these games wondering: is it going to be special teams that we have to depend on to get a block punt or something along those lines? And Mike Tomlin did talk about special teams yesterday. That I thought it was a good answer. That we got a block punt, but they returned one for a touchdown, albeit, say what you will about the illegal block in the back or whatnot, that was missed. And but Mike Tomlin said, what did he call it? A sudden, what did he call that? Sudden.
I don't remember what he said.
Sudden change or whatnot, but splash, instant splash plays like that can change the game. And I think who was it? Someone was interviewed and said, look, if you get a special teams or a defensive touchdown in a game, the percentages of times that team wins that game, I'll have to look it up. That'd be an interesting stat to know to know for sure. But I mean, it makes sense obviously because you're effectively stealing a possession, if you will, in those situations there. So I like what he had to say about Trey Edmonds, even though we don't expect him to play a lot. What are the challenges of playing on the West Coast? He says, I'm sure there are some, not that I'm willing to acknowledge, or at least acknowledge from a logistical standpoint. Mike Tomlin is 1-4 in the state of California. Steelers are 0-3 under Tomlin, I think. Against Oakland, is that right? Or 0-2 under Tomlin in Oakland, and Ben obviously has never won in Oakland. And Oakland looked like they'd started to get a little bit of rhythm on offense against Kansas City.
Well, Dave, let's find out what they're doing to get that kind of rhythm. Let's go to Michael Gelkin. You can follow him at Gelkin NFL, GEHLKEN NFL, and we'll be back in a moment and talk to Michael Gelkin.
All right, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is, of course, Wednesday, and that means we have an opposing beat writer from the other team on to help us preview the Steelers' upcoming game this weekend, and that game, of course, is going to be against the Oakland Raiders in Oakland. We are pleased to have back on the show again. The last time he was on the show, there was a team called the San Diego Chargers, and he covered them. That, of course, now is the Chargers moved to L.A., and Michael Gelkin now covers the Raiders for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. You can follow Michael Gelkin on Twitter at Gelkin NFL. I'll have that Twitter link in the post associated with this on SteelersDepot.com. Do your thing and make sure you reach out to him and thank him for coming on the show. Michael, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast.
Thank you for having me. Seems like it's been a while. We last talked.
It has been a while, and now, of course, you are covering the Raiders. Let's start with a general kind of overview of the Raiders' first season for John Gruden, of course, and things haven't gone as planned. A little bit of an older team. Obviously, the Raiders made a couple of deals, kind of head scratchers ahead of the season, one being with the Steelers to acquire Martavis Bryant. That hasn't worked out so well. What is the general sense, the overview of this team right now at 30,000 feet? Is there any kind of strife going on between Gruden and Reggie McKenzie at this point? And obviously, the team is about to move out my way here to Vegas. So just a general update on the Raiders.
Sure. Well, everything really changed when the Raiders traded Ryan Switzer to the Steelers. That was just the ground moved here in Oakland. In all seriousness, the season, as you referenced, hasn't been at all what the Raiders would have hoped, what their locker room would have hoped. They enter this game and they're 2-10. They currently are projected to have the number 2 overall pick. They're on pace to fall just behind of the San Francisco 49ers. And so it's been a tough year of NFL in the Bay Area. But despite all of that, and despite no doubt disappointment, there is probably more optimism than you would think. I think the locker room, in part because it was composed with a bunch of veterans. John Gruden got some eye rolls around the league when he was signing so many veterans of 30-plus years, 29-plus years of age. Yet here we are, and you see some of the leadership that the Raiders have been able to receive, the way that they've been able to that maturity and showing a draft class how to handle the ebbs and flows of the league and not get too low and not get too high. Those sorts of things have helped keep this locker room together. I think all in all, considering Khalil Mack was traded 9 days before the season, considering in the middle of the first practice following the bye week, Amari Cooper literally pulled off the field and notified that he was being traded to the Dallas Cowboys for a first-round pick. Teammates not knowing about the Cooper trade until they went back into their locker room and checked their cell phones. It wasn't something that was told to them on the field. All of this and losing has been a lot to handle, but I think all in all, they've done a pretty good job of just staying together, despite some frustration. I think we've seen in recent weeks, certainly this past Sunday, in a 40-33 loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. Raiders were right there in the fourth game. You see that this team hasn't quit. You see they are still fighting, and that's the sort of thing that Coach John Gruden and this whole organization, which you mentioned Reggie McKenzie, the general manager, they seem to be working together just fine. This is what they hope can prove to be the foundation for better days to come.
Before I ask you real quickly about Derek Carr, do you see a split coming between McKenzie and the organization, or no?
It's really Reggie McKenzie's call. Based on what he has said publicly, no. Based on what people certainly earlier in the season were saying privately, I would have said absolutely. To handicap it one way or the other, I'd rather not. But it really ultimately will be Reggie McKenzie's call. If he wants to go somewhere else, he will have the opportunity to do so. As of now, standing here today, I would say that if I was just a guess, I would say Reggie McKenzie will still be here in 2019. Certainly it's under his contract, and that is what Raiders owner Mark Davis wants.
Obviously a tough season for Derek Carr, too, at quarterback. Where are you on Derek Carr after this season, and where do you think the Raiders are on Derek Carr?
It's funny, actually, before we started chatting, I was looking at Derek Carr's last 7+ games, 29 quarters, so 7 games and a quarter of football. And he has thrown 10 touchdowns. He has 0 interceptions. He's completed about 67% of his passes, and he's been sacked 28 times in that span. And so you look at a quarterback's play, you can't simply look at it in a vacuum. You have to look at, this is his 4th play caller in his 5-year career. He's had weapons be lost to trade or to injury, and that might not have been that great in the first place. He has protection that has been, without a doubt, the worst of his career, not even close in terms of career high sack rate. He's in the mid-30s, late 30s. He's been seemingly sacked 3 or more times every game. And there's one exception there of late, but it's been constant barrage of contact that he's been taking. And that includes having 2 rookie offensive tackles. Brian Parker on the right side is especially raw. He allowed, in the game against the Baltimore Ravens, a strip sack to become 3 consecutive sacks. And I mean 3 straight plays where Brian Parker allowed a sack. And so he's out of North Carolina A&T, making a huge jump in competition, a trial by fire, and he's learning to handle his emotions during the game. That's who's protecting Derek Carr on the right side. Left tackle, Colton Miller, first-round pick out of UCLA. The Raiders have been really, really pleased with. They think they really found something there. His talent, the way his mental makeup is. what he's going to be in this league once he continues to get stronger and has a full offseason to work with. But he was playing through multiple knee sprains. I believe in a 6-week span, he's knee 3 times. And when you're going through that, you're not going to be as mobile. You're not going to really be able to anchor as best as you might otherwise. And so between the two of them, be it injury or just learning how to play in this league, along with injuries at left guard, at center, and at right guard, this has been a lot for Derek Carr to handle. And yet, you look up, and he's got 7 games without interception. Not only a career-long streak, but it's tied with Rich Gannon for the longest streak without interception in franchise history for most consecutive games. So, all in all, I would say Derek Carr is doing pretty well. I think there is an I don't call it an obsession, but people were going into the season because it's John Gruden. How are Gruden and Derek Carr going to coexist? Can Carr handle Gruden's intensity? And I think people are forcing that storyline a little bit too much when there really isn't anything there. They see emotional conversations on the sideline. John Gruden is an emotional guy. That's what it's going to look like. So, all in all, despite maybe the occasional, people saying things that, might look one way but really aren't, I think this has been a strong season for Derek Carr. And when he gets more help around him and he gets more comfort in John Gruden's scheme, as we've already seen this season, better days should be coming for the Raiders quarterback.
Another Raider that's having a strong season, and is one of Carr's favorite weapons, is Jared Cook, who I think is posting career numbers at age 31 for a tight end. Usually that's not how it works. So, how are they using Jared Cook? Why is he having his best season ever? I know there's been a lack of talent around him that's kind of, forced Cook to football, but how are they using him? Do they flex him out? Do they use him down the seam? What's going on with Jared Cook?
Yeah, they move him around a lot, and you're right in that the situation at wide receiver has been a big part of the reason why he's been so involved. But even early in the season, he started the very first game. He had 180 receiving yards against the LA Rams in the season opener. Cook's had a fascinating career where he is the first tight end in NFL history to have 100 receiving yards for 4 different franchises. Wow. Look at the record book. He is the all-time, in terms of single-game receiving yards, the all-time leader for the Tennessee Titans, for the now Los Angeles Rams. He was there, of course, when the team was in St. Louis. And also now, after that 180-yard game in the opener, the Oakland Raiders. And so for 3 different franchises, he's had the best game out of any tight end in that club's history. And so here in Oakland at age 31, he finds himself at the center of an offense. Jordan Nelson being back to closer to full speed after some knee injuries and what else. We're not really sure. He didn't really divulge. But they have just been leaning on Cook, and he has also been something of the backbone in terms of, we talked earlier about how veterans are kind of helping this locker room stay the course and just weather the storm that a 2-10 season companies. He has been a bit of a source of that fire. When you look at a game against the LA Chargers last month, and it's about a minute remaining in regulation. The Raiders are down 2 scores. They're deep in their own territory. This is the time where you just kind of pack up and go home. Mm-hmm. Not Jared Cook. He takes a short pass in the right flat and stiff arms the heck out of a fantastic young cornerback that the Chargers have, Desmond Keene. Just knocks him to the ground. And afterward, Keene's talking about, I don't really know what Jared Cook's problem was, type of thing. Well, season, and we'll probably be about 2-11 after this weekend, that has been Jared Cook's problem. He's been in the NFL for a decade. He's been bouncing around between teams. He's never made it into the Pro Bowl. He's not happy. And so that fire, that professionalism, that finishing out games, it kind of translates to finishing out seasons. And so when your locker room is composed of guys like that, there's no quitting. And so teammates voted Jared Cook their A Block Courage Award winner. That's part of the reason why. He's been with the Raiders for 2 seasons. We're talking about how he's finishing out this season. Last year, against Kansas City late in the year. I believe it was in Kansas City, probably early December. He catches a glance of the safety off his left wrist on a pass to convert a third down. Ends up after the game, his left arm's totally swollen. He has to have X-rays, MRIs, the whole deal. Reveals that he's got 4 torn ligaments and 3 chipped bones, something along that as a diagnosis. He not only finished that game catching a touchdown pass a drive later, but he finishes out the final 3 games, in part because he wants to be there for his teammates, even though it was a 6-10 campaign, in part because he wants to make the Pro Bowl, because after a career that he's had, where he's had success in individual circumstances, but not as a team, and he's being bounced around, he wants to show that he's one of the best tight ends in this game. And so he figures to get that recognition this season, but he's not happy. And so if you see a pissed off Jared Cook on Sunday, that's why.
Noted. I know you joked about the Ryan Switzer trade, but the one receiver deal that was really notable was during draft day. Steelers trade Martavis Bryant to Oakland for a 3rd-round pick. I know it's been an insane saga with Bryant, and he's missed the last several weeks with, I think, a PCL injury. But is he going to play this week? Because I don't know that. And just kind of take us through that bizarre start where he got cut and they brought him back. And is he going to have any impact if he plays this weekend?
Yeah, the Martavis Bryant story is an extensive one. It probably dates back, obviously the trade happened in late April. By the time mid-June came around, the Raiders were concerned that he was going to have a problem as it related to the substance abuse policy. They thought that he was going to be suspended again based on what they were hearing. And so, as encouraged as they were following their spring workout program, their OTAs, their minicamp, they left thinking we might not have Martavis Bryant, the guy we acquired for a 3rd-round draft pick, the guy who's in the contract year, the guy who we knew had a history. It sounds like it might blow up in our face, so to speak. So that was what carried the Raiders into training camp. And then in camp, still didn't know yet. They were waiting. They limited his reps because why prepare somebody who might be suspended for a full season? We should be developing some of our other players. And so in terms of his level of comfort in the offense, it wasn't where it needed to be, certainly relative to other players. His ability to play multiple positions, he just didn't have that grasp. And so along the Raiders went, and then September 1st comes along, and the Raiders are trimming down their roster, paring it from 90 to 53, and they release Martavis Bryant. This followed a 3-touchdown preseason finale from Keon Hatcher that the Raiders said was the reason why they cut Martavis Bryant. However, it was reported that he'd actually been suspended by the NFL for the full year. But then Martavis began the appeal process. And so after a week, Raiders went ahead and picked up Bryant, believing that, there's a chance that this appeal process is going to take a while. It'll just be stretched out. And so let's see what we can get out of him while we can. And so that's kind of where it's been. Then the knee injury happened, and Raiders really don't have the ability to stretch the field. They really haven't had that big aha type of play where Martavis got, sprinted 50 yards and then got behind the defense and caught one. There was a game where he was against Cleveland Browns in week 4 where he had that opportunity, and then Derek Carr maybe put a little bit too much air on the ball, but it required an adjustment. Still a play, absolutely, Martavis had to make, and he dropped it. And so that was kind of an important moment, I think. But, Martavis has been through a lot in his life. As I've gotten to know him, come to really appreciate his story. I think so often, I reported in June that the Raiders were concerned that Martavis Bryant would be suspended coming up here. And I saw nothing but almost jubilation, almost like people were happy. Like people were just dancing on the grave of Martavis Bryant's football career and stay off the weed, like Stephen A. Smith clips and like the whole thing. And I think we forget sometimes. Let me just say, if Martavis Bryant, I think video kind of changes everything. Like we talked about, domestic abuse and the way we view things in this world. It's different when you read about it. It's quite another when you see it. I think if people had a video and they could go back and just see Martavis Bryant's life and see what this guy's been through. And some of it I'm going to be writing down the road, probably to finish the season.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't celebrate a guy's missteps or a guy's, failures, whatever it may be. This guy, it's hard to really talk about without getting into greater detail, but his life, without knowing you guys or knowing your listeners, and the chances are it's been harder. Things that he's had to deal with, a lot of his teammates don't know the reality of. And yet he's been able to, kind of go through it all this year. He's been able to keep his head up and stay positive. Doesn't know the playbook as well as other guys. He doesn't. I don't necessarily know if that's through a lack of his version of trying. I think some guys just pick things up better than others, and he hasn't been there. But in terms of what he's been able to provide, teammates talk about him as just his positivity and just that sort of thing. He's been. I'm not saying he's been a third round value. Absolutely not. I mean, we can be serious at the same time as being fair. But all in all, I think Martavis has done as good of a job as handling some of the circumstances that were thrown his way. And the situation as related to suspension, I'm told, predated the trade, which kind of complicated things as far as the Raiders were concerned.
He certainly is talented, and we'll hope to see him be able to get back and display that talent again. You've been busy on Twitter, and the Raiders have been busy on a transaction wire. You reported Demontre Moore, I think a former third-round defensive end, was signed. Also, C.J. Anderson, who several Steelers fans, for some reason, was hoping the Steelers would go after him. I'm glad they didn't, but I see he's with the Raiders now. And also, as of this morning, I think about an hour ago, you reported the Raiders are re-signing Coney Ely, who had spent time with them back in November, but was inactive. How quickly do you see these guys getting up to speed, and what predict for us what the Raiders injury report will look like later this afternoon?
Yeah, that part is going to be difficult. I mean, there's some corresponding moves on the back end of these transactions that don't know. I mean, Fadal Brown being released, one of them related to the Demontre Moore signing. And Moore was someone who worked out for the Raiders on October 2nd. They've been thinking about this move for a while. He's a high upside guy. He's really worked to turn around his life. I'm told it's behind the scenes. He was with the Raiders in the 2016 offseason, but just wasn't there mentally. Like, he needed help, and it seems has gotten it. And so he gets a fresh start with the team. C.J. Anderson, a local guy. Don't know the injury situation at running back. If the Raiders are moving on from one of their three backs, that we'll have to wait to see. An answer I've hoped to find, but haven't been able to find.
I tell you, they're suffering. They're suffering from fumbleitis.
All of a sudden, that was unbelievable. And so, talk about the Raiders. Let's go with the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday, 40-33. They going into that game, their running backs, their backfield, over the course of the season, which includes Marshawn Lynch, who is on injured reserve. But as a backfield, as a team, they had 316 offensive touches for their running backs. They lost one fumble on those 316 touches. To start Sunday's game against the Chiefs, they lost 3 fumbles, their running backs did. They lost 3 fumbles in 20 touches. And it was odd. It was the first time in franchise history, dating back to the 1970 NFL-AFL merger, and this is a very fun stat to look up, by the way. So 1970, first time in franchise history that 3 different running backs for the Raiders lost a fumble on offense in the same game. Doug Martin had the first one. DeAndre Washington had the second one. Running back Jamal Singleton after the second one, as you can imagine, was pissed on the sideline. Let every running back know while he was standing and they were sitting on the sideline bench. He was leaning forward, kind of intense, extremely intense, saying, "You got me, you got me, you got me," each one by one, making sure that they knew what his expectation was as it related to ball security. And then later in the game, Jalen Richard committed the third fumble that they lost. And so not what they wanted, but they hope that that's just merely a glitch. And what you saw with the first 11 games was a better reflection of their ability to protect the football.
What's going to be the big name on the injury report today, or a couple of big names, you think?
I'm curious to see who might be going to IR. Shalik Calhoun is a defensive end who Gruden said Monday suffered an injury. Don't know the specifics. You mentioned Mo Hurst Jr. had an injury as well. So I think defensive line, just seeing what the state is overall there. That's one. On the defensive end, Arden Key has been dealing with knee problems for pretty much all season. So, I mean, just kind of see how guys on the defensive line are looking. That's probably the area that I'll be most interested in on the practice field today.
Who are the X factors on this defense? There's been so many different names, a lot of new guys. That D-line is so young with Hurst, who seems like a steal. I mean, you can speak to that better than I can, but P.J. Hall, Arden Key. But just overall in this defense, who are the one or two guys that Steeler fans should really be worried about?
Worried?
or just of note.
I don't know. Ben's throwing it right to him, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's been a tough year for the Raiders. It's been a tough year for defensive coordinator Paul Guenther. And he came from the Cincinnati Bengals, and especially early in the year, I don't know if you look at this defense and say there's any one player that would have started for him last year in Cincinnati.
Wow.
And Here we are. There has been some development. I think cornerback Garron Conley, a 2017 first-round pick, playing with more confidence. And really, I would apply this to an entire secondary. I think while they've still struggled, while Patrick Mahomes still had a field day, and he was just sick. I'd never seen him play in person. He was absurd throws that he was making. Like it was fun to watch. Like if I was a bandwagon fan, if I didn't have a team and I just wanted to pick one, it'd be fun to root for Patrick Mahomes and just watch him every Sunday. Like
that offense is something. We saw it earlier in this season with the Steelers fans, and he tore them up too.
Yeah, and so the stats probably weren't there from a secondary standpoint, but you look at the way Garron Conley has improved. I think his individual stats were pretty solid this past Sunday. I think that would be a good spot to look. Yeah, we'll see again what the defensive line looks like, but presuming Mo Hurst Jr., the fifth-round pick, who probably should have been a second or even a first-round pick, if not for his heart issue, he has been probably the Raiders' best defensive rookie. I shouldn't even say probably. I think that is a pretty clear statement. And so, there are some young guys there that the Raiders believe can be some pieces. The secondary, just turn back to Garron Conley, it's dealt with a lot of fluidity in terms of the way that the Raiders have dispensed snaps, the workload. A guy such as Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie could start 1 week and be relegated to nothing but special teams duty the very next game. Cromartie ended up choosing to retire after that happened. Just kind of give you a sense of some of the frustration that was happening in the secondary middle of the year. But over these past couple games, Rashawn Melvin, the guy who signed a 1-year contract worth up to $5.5 million in March, he's been back involved being a healthy scratch for a few games. You have Garron Conley. We also have Daryl Worley, somebody who Philadelphia Eagles gave up on after an arrest this offseason. Raiders took a chance. He's here on a 1-year contract and might be one of those guys the Raiders would hope to extend this offseason. And so there are some things there. I think a secondary can look pretty poor when you don't have a pass rush. And I have a pretty good stat for you guys. Since the 1970 NFL-AFL merger, and actually you can probably go back at least a decade after that, you look at the first 12 games of a season, the Raiders are the first defense in that span, across the NFL, not just here for the Raiders, not in franchise history, even around the league. First defense to, through 12 games, only have recorded one multi-sack game.
Wow.
So it's been ones and zeros with the exception of a 2-sack game against the Cleveland Browns in week 4, October 30th. So that gives you a sense of what the secondary has had to deal with. And I know sack is an imperfect statistic. It matters about quarterback hits. It matters about quarterback hurries. There's more to pressure than sacks. But those numbers aren't pretty either. They're worse than the league, and it's valid. So it's been that sort of year. I believe they have 10 sacks through 12 games. Ben Roethlisberger is difficult enough to sack as it is because he's so just big and strong in the pocket. I've seen him many times over the years, defensive ends, outside linebackers just draping over him, and yet he finds a way to step forward in the pocket and somehow complete a pass. They're going to have a lot of trouble bringing down Roethlisberger. I would imagine that we don't see a multi-sack game on Sunday either.
Well, I'd like to keep you on for another 30 minutes because you give such great detailed answers and all, but I know you have work to do for sure covering the Raiders and all. Before we get you out of here, how about a quick look? I mean, the Steelers there have been some ugly trips to Oakland. In fact, the last time I think the Steelers have won there was 1995. Ben's never won there. Mike Tomlin's never won there. Some really, really ugly losses by the Steelers. How about a prediction for the Sunday game in the black hole for our listeners?
Well, I would, even though the Steelers are without running back James Conner, I think there is enough of a talent disparity, certainly between the Steelers offense and the Raiders defense, that the Raiders are going to have a tough time keeping pace. And so I don't know what that means in terms of who's producing in that backfield. I am excited to say that Jalen Samuels does have tight end eligibility in my fantasy league.
We talked about it. That's hilarious. He's anything but a tight end, and it's funny that they have him listed in Yahoo.
Yeah, I'm on a bye week, which isn't a humble brag, but it doesn't really matter for me this week, but hopefully that'll. Anyway, no, I think the Steelers will eclipse 30 points. I think the Raiders have shown an ability to keep pace. Derek Carr is playing really good football. Jordy Nelson, they're finding creative ways to get him more involved. He had a snap last Sunday at running back to that point. They're going to do some things. John Gruden deserves a lot of credit for how he's it's instituting some pretty advanced concepts, and Carr is executing them well. And this thing is pretty complex that you're going to see being run. You talk about guys like Sean McVay for the LA Rams and his offense, and there's a reason he and Gruden work together. There's a reason that certain plays look a certain way. It's because John Gruden has been running them first, and so there is that aspect of this offense that I think gives the Raiders something of a chance. But ultimately, you look at Antonio Brown, you look at Smith-Schuster. Let's go on the list, and Vance McDonald, I think, could big boy the Raiders after Kelsey just did that to a tune of more than 160 yards last week. I'm going to say the Steelers win this game. Call it 30-24.
All right, so Raiders would cover that one then. I think they're 11.5 dogs right now at home right now. Michael, man, it sure is great catching up with you once again. Obviously, different team, but you're still, I follow you on Twitter for a long, long time, and I appreciate your work. You're very great, very good at what you do, and hopefully we can have you on down the line again. And when you get to Vegas, make sure you holler at me so I can buy you a cold drink and all. But Michael, thanks again. Folks, you can follow Michael on Twitter at Gelken, GEHLKEN NFL on Twitter. Michael, thanks for joining us again on the Terrible Podcast.
Thanks, Michael.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.
All right, Dave, good stuff. Thanks again to Michael Gelken. I really appreciate him coming on. You talked to him, before, I guess? When was the last time you talked to him?
Yeah, it's been several years ago when the Steelers played the Chargers. What was it, 2014, 15? But he's another one that has been a long gap in there since we had him on and all. And of course, he went from covering the Chargers to covering the Raiders. But he's very thorough. He's a great read, in the Las Vegas Review Journal. So make sure you go to that website, listeners, and please, as usual, and a lot of you have been great about this. I mean, I try to retweet what I see. I know Alex does as well too. Reach out to these guys on Twitter. If you like what you hear and the job that they do, because it means a lot to them to know that their time is valuable and they're being heard. And you can, of course, reach out to Michael Gelken on Twitter at Gelken NFL, at GEHLKEN NFL. I think I spelled that right. Yeah, GEHLKEN NFL. All right, Alex, how cold is it there today?
Oh, I hate even looking. 32. I guess it's not too bad.
It was, I had to go give blood this morning, and it was 39 here in
Wow.
Vegas. And that was I was hopping in the car at, I think, about 5:30. And, boy, first thing I did is jump in there and turn on that seat heater there in my wife's car there. And, boy, you talk about a seat heater, Action Heat a new sponsor of the Terrible Podcast. Action Heat makes the world's best battery-heated clothing for situations such as that. It's heat on demand with a touch of a button. Control your environment in that way. Their clothing is engineered safely and efficiently to deliver the heat via the heat panel, similar to that I have in my car seat there. So they can reach temperatures up to 135 degrees. That's almost close enough to fry an egg on, I guess. And are powered by rechargeable 5-volt lithium-ion batteries. And the best thing about the jacket that I have that uses that Action Heat is you can also recharge any of your gadgets, your phones, via the USB port and all like that. You can recharge those via the Action Heat wear. So that's another added bonus with those. Perfect for any friend or family for your holiday gift list. It's about that time. If you're kind of looking for that unique gift for anyone that maybe works outdoors or they ski or they snowboard or anybody that loves the outdoors but hates being cold, Action Heat clothing is really the way to go with this. Action Heat clothing provides toasty warmth comfort for your whole body. They make the heated jackets, the heated socks, the gloves, the hats, and even undergarments like heated base layer shirts and long johns. They have all that stuff. You can stay warm and cozy from head to toe with Action Heat. Their clothing is available in men's and women's sizes. It has great new styles and models just released for this holiday winter season as well, too. So getting this stuff will make winter activities more enjoyable with a blast of warmth. Action Heat is the perfect solution to keep you toasty and warm, even in the most frigid winter weather. Now, they have a promotion going on for listeners of the Terrible Podcast. And here's what you need to do. To get a special deal for them, for our listeners, to save 20% off your entire order, and that's perfect right in time for Christmas here, go to actionheat.com/terrible. actionheat.com/terrible to check out everything they have to offer, and in doing so, you'll get a 20% discount off your entire order. If you forget to go to that URL, just go to actionheat.com and use the coupon code TERRIBLE, lowercase, terrible, at checkout to save 20%. Stay toasty warm while you enjoy your outdoor activities this winter with Action Heat, and we thank them for sponsoring the podcast.
Be great for if you're going to Heinz Field, not this week, but next week against New England. Probably be a great time to bring some of that.
Yeah, how unseasonably warm was it there this past?
Yeah, it hit like 62, I think, on Monday. I think it was.
I think it was warmer there than it was here in Vegas for most of that Sunday there. All right, Michael did a great job. A few final notes here on the Steelers' loss to the Chargers. Look, I mean, I understand, the long snap, the simulated snaps, at the end and all, which, by the way, I think they were offsides all three times, but, there was a little bit of that twisting, if you will, but evidently he's done that, for most of his career there. So it'll be interesting to see if Wentz draws a flag with that moving forward. Obviously, the Steelers won't benefit from that kind of stuff. The false starts. I understand there was some bad officiating in that game, but you got to find a way to overcome that kind of stuff, and the Steelers just left too many plays out on the field. You talk about the long incompletion that should have been a touchdown to Justin Hunter in that game. You talk about, one of those receptions by Keenan Allen was a touchdown, but that ball has to be picked off in that situation. Just there's one or two other plays we can point to in that game that, if you make those plays, none of the rest, I don't think, matters in this. And, it was disappointing to see some of the scheme-wise, obviously, against Allen. It was disappointing to see this defense not be able to get a stop late in the game. And, obviously, it's, of course, disappointing to see this defense not be able to register turnovers. So, there are a lot of factors to this loss that you can point to. But, the fact of the matter is they did not make enough plays.
You did say, when we were talking before the show, though, Dave, that you felt better about this, I think, going through the tape. What made you what made you feel better about this?
Well, I just think that it's just that. The plays were there to be made. I mean, a win despite all that happened again. I mean, you talk about just those two plays alone with Roethlisberger. And look, I mean, we had a great reader send in the email about the missed extra point and how the math maybe impacts the game. from that point forward as well too. When you look at how Keenan Allen, did what he did, and yes, it is a little bit of results bias to say, those first 3 catches, I mean, the drive stalled. And I realized that, well, because of that, they saw this and it became that, and you're able to scheme better in the second half. But, overall, there was, other than not creating a turnover, you're leaving plays on the field that you should have made, almost like it or exactly like it was in Denver, because, Grimble fumbling at the goal line and then, Connor fumbling the ball almost down in the red zone there. Those were huge plays. So that's why I got a sense of feeling a little bit better. Now, granted, I'm still not 100%, on board with this defense. And
you better not be.
the fact of the matter is they failed that first of what we're calling 3 tests, in the second half. So, look, we expect them to beat the Raiders, right?
They better.
We expect them to beat the Bengals to close out the season, right?
They better.
Are they going to win one of those other 2 games?
They better.
Which other? Obviously, you have them going at least 2-2, right? Do you have them going 3-1?
I don't know. I haven't even thought about it. They better, like I said, to not only put themselves in position to win the AFC North and get the 4th seed, worst case scenario, but also just to prove that they can beat one of these real top quality teams to give yourselves some confidence, both them and us, for the playoff run. So who do you think they have better odds of beating, New England or New Orleans?
New England.
Yeah, I agree.
and that's that I guess that's not saying a lot, but how do you after fully digesting the tape now, how do you feel coming out of that game? Do you feel a little bit better or no?
No, these losses are always cathartic to go through the tape, and you kind of get a better understanding of why and how things happen. So from that aspect, naturally, you do feel a little bit better, but you just see some of the mistakes that were so costly and some of the bad matchups and bad scheme stuff that makes you want to pull your hair out. So I don't feel as good, quote unquote, about this loss as I did the Denver loss. Not that you feel good about it, but I felt like the Denver game, was just kind of, it is what it was what it was. But this game was more frustrating than that.
And make no mistake, the offense only scored 7 points in the second half, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
How much of this goes on them and that unit? Thankfully they got that final 7 points, but to play the way they played in that first half, being able to move the football, and then to have the problems that they had, on third down in the second half, that kind of stuff just didn't happen. And look, even early in the game, they weren't great on first down. We went into this game talking about how great the Chargers were on first down, and the Steelers defense, for the most part, especially early in the game, did a great job against them. The Steelers offense did not have a good game on first down, and thankfully they had some big strikes in there, and obviously should have had another big strike in that game to Justin Hunter as well too. But this team has got to start playing better on first down. They're going to continue to score points, but you just can't have the drop off that you had in that first half to the second half with this offense.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I think that they got to get better on third down because, like you said, it's 0-7 to finish that after a 3-for-3 start. I've mentioned it a million times before. And I know first down, to be successful on third down, you'll be successful on first down. But we've seen this third down offense really hum and be at times the best in football. They got to get back to that if they want to get back to their winning ways.
And obviously, a couple penalties involved in there,
right.
Put you behind the chains,
yep.
As well too. And those things, unfortunately, going to happen there as well. So. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. That's the Steelers Nation's fight song, right?
Yep. Yes, it is, unfortunately.
All right. Anything else to talk about? I think this is going to be a long one today. But once again, thanks to Michael Gelkin, and we'll be back at this thing on Friday. We'll give you a further breakdown of what we expect out of the Oakland Raider offense. I've just started getting into the tape on there. Some exciting RPO stuff they got going on with that offense on them. So we'll break it all down more in detail starting on Friday. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex Kozora on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. You can email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.